me, I am from DC, and by DC I mean Northern Virginia, and by Northern Virginia I mean I live in Centerville, and by Centerville I mean Alabama. Because nobody from Nova says that you're from Virginia, right? You always throw Northern in front of it, or say that you're from DC, which can be a hard thing to explain to people that aren't from here. Like, I was in New York recently, and I kept introducing myself, saying I was from Northern Virginia, and they noticed. They're like, there's a Northern Virginia there? I was like, yeah, there is. And it's very different. I know you might have heard some things. That wasn't us. And down, that was us. And it's not that I'm ashamed to be from Virginia, like, right? Like, I like it. Like, I don't at least lie and say that I'm from DC like everybody else. Like, I think that's counterproductive. It's kind of like when Americans travel in Europe and they tell us just to say we're from Canada because everyone hates us. And I'm like, well, how are we going to turn that around if all the cool Americans are just pretending to be Canadian? You know? So we got to take it back. It's just sometimes I do like to make the designation between North and South. Like, while I was in New York, we were all watching the news, and this story came on about this mass demonstration of a bunch of people in Virginia protesting the removal of a Confederate statue. And everybody like looked at me, and I was like, fucking Southern Virginia, man. I'm with you guys. That's, so for the rest of the trip, I said I was from DC. I get why I need to do that now. I'm comfortable with that. They did ask me a good question while I was there that I hadn't thought of. They asked, okay, well then where does Northern Virginia stop and Southern Virginia begin? Which I never really thought of. It's a good question. So you can kind of look at elections, and that kind of gives you a story. But I find that the best thing to do is to just drive down 81 and keep track of how much time elapses in between Confederate flag sightings. Sort of like racist contractions. Like, oh shit, these are only a minute apart now. You guys might want to get your head on a swivel. Turn off that music. We're in the South. We're officially in the South. Let's see. Speaking of Southern Virginia, I went shooting for the first time last winter. Peyton saw the aftermath of this, but she hasn't actually heard this story, so I wanted to tell it. So I went shooting for the first time. I went to a long-distance shooting range, which means very large guns to reach targets very far away. And what I learned is I do not know how to safely operate a high-powered rifle. Who would have guessed? For those of you that don't know anything about guns like me, it's not like in the movies where they put their eyes like right next to the scope. If you do that with an actual sniper rifle, it will crack back and slice your face open, and use me to everybody else at the gun range. So that's what happened to me. First shot, just crack, slice, amusement. The dude running the range is like old army dude, like comes over and he's like, hey, you're gonna want to put your face back a couple inches from that. I was like, what were even 2 seconds ago before I shot myself in the face, man? And he was like, well, if I had known you were so inexperienced, I would have walked you through the weapon more carefully. I'm like, what about me screams gun experience to you, my friend? Did you happen to notice that every other person here pulled up in a giant truck wearing at least one article of camouflage, and I pulled up in a Honda Accord wearing mittens? Give you some idea of how experienced I am with weapons? Okay, yeah. Peyton saw me, we got together a few days after that, I had a big gash on my head. She was making fun of me, so that's why I wanted to tell that. I was in New York recently, like I said. The main thing that you do in New York is you just walk around, right? And I'm a pretty anxious person, so the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, man, do people think that I'm from New York, or can they tell that I'm a tourist? And I can tell by your face, it's like, they thought you were a tourist. But you haven't heard the whole story. Because at one point, while I'm walking around, I ordered a hot dog from a local hot dog purveyor. And I continued to walk around while eating this hot dog at the same time. And I don't know why, but in my head I'm like, this is the most fucking New York thing ever. Like, you are blending in seamlessly right now, Nathan. So much so that some tourists came up to me, and they were like, hey, how do we get to the Empire State Building? And I didn't want to break character, right? So I was like, get the fuck away from me! The Empire State Building, all the buildings are up, just look up. And what's that guy doing? Is he just standing there eating a hot dog? You gotta walk around. What, are you from Southern Virginia?